Welcome back to the Scilife Academy. In this course, we'll be looking at clauses in ISO 13485-2016. Any organization in the medical device industry needs to comply with the quality and compliance requirements from applicable regulations. And the most widely used international standard for quality management systems in the medical device industry is ISO 13485-2016. So the first thing you need to understand is the requirements of ISO 13485-2016 itself. I'll guide you through the standard and clear up any misconceptions. Part 1 focuses on clauses 1 to 4 of ISO 13485-2016. Let's get started. First off, when you're looking at ISO 13485-2016, make sure you don't skip the introduction. The general clause in the introduction highlights concepts that are important to understand and apply to the rest of the standard. And remember, using this standard is important for any organization involved in any stage of the life cycle of a medical device. Just bear in mind that ISO 13485-2016 should complement any applicable technical requirements and other regulations from different jurisdictions, depending on the nation and region. The general clause clarifies the use of essential concepts that show up repeatedly in the standard. Let's go through each of them, starting with the concept as appropriate. A requirement is appropriate if it is necessary to comply with the product and regulatory requirements, unless there is a strong rationale to ignore it. If the requirement is related to corrective action or managing risks, it's better to include it rather than exclude it. In the ISO 13485 standard, the phrase "as appropriate" appears 29 times. You can see some examples here. The next concept is risk. This pertains to the safety and performance requirements of the medical device or meeting the regulatory requirements. Risk is not used here as a business concept. The phrase appears 32 times in the ISO 13485 standard, like the examples on the screen. The third concept to look at is documented. This is a tricky word in the standard. When it is required, it means more than only documented or retained. It also means established, implemented, and maintained. In the context of arrangements, or in the context of process, documented also makes reference to the creation of a record, possibly the instruction to people how it is created, and finally, the record. Document appears 35 times in the ISO 13485 standard. You can see some examples. Next up is product. This term also includes service, and it applies to the intended outputs resulting from the product realization process. The fifth and final concept is that of regulatory requirement. This is applied only to requirements for the QMS and the safety or performance of the medical device. This section also establishes definitions for shall, should, may, and can. Shall means that something is required. Should is a recommendation. May is a permission. And can is possibility or capability. Whereas the word can appears 45 times in the standard, shall appears 255 times, which indicates that most sentences refer to requirements. The process approach of having an effective quality management system is key in the ISO 13485 standard. Generally speaking, all operations in an organization should be observed as a linked network of processes. It means that every single process has inputs, such as information, needed resources, and documents to function. Processes also give outputs. Every process is seen as an added value activity. Once you identify every process, you can monitor and measure its effectiveness and its efficiency. With the data obtained, you will be able to improve all of them together, depending on objectives. Compliance with ISO 13485 does not imply compliance with ISO 9001. Although ISO 13485 is based on ISO 9001, it excludes some of the requirements of ISO 9001 that are not appropriate as regulatory requirements. Therefore, any organization that aims to be compliant with both standards has to implement all applicable requirements of both ISO 9001 and ISO 13485. ISO 13485 does not include any requirements specific to other management systems, such as environmental, occupational health and safety, or financial management. However, it enables any organization to align or integrate its QMS with the requirements of other management systems. Okay, that's it for the introduction and the general clause. Let's move on to Clause 1.